which is 1.0. And then once we created the one, we have created the number of object over there. So this one, we are assigning a value of that particular circle to a radius 2.0. We are created of circle, and then we retrieve the number of objects created from that one. Yeah. So sorry, let me. Yeah. Okay. There are lots of things that happening during that, when declaring that one, declaring that class methods and of course data. But we are also talking about all these store in the same file, and we call all everything is in the same package per se. Yeah. So in this case, if we declare all the variables and all the class in the same file and with the same name package, so in this case we can have different definitions over here when we're declaring all this class and this data. For example, for the public, so in terms of public, you can declare whether it's as private or public. So public means that everyone, the data, the class, and the method is visible to everyone over here. Or the private means that only can be accessed by the declaring classes. We also can have a get and set method, means that get is missing. Basically, we retrieve that particular information. So for example, data, yeah. Set means we assign the value for that particular data. So these two basically we basically normally we put get x and set x, means that we get the value and we set the value. Sometimes we call it setter and getter. Yeah. I've done we have looked into this one. So if let's say, so we have two packages, which is we store in two different files over here. So the first file is called package P1 and the second one is package P2. So with the different classes over here. So class C1, they have data and the methods over here, M1, M2, and M3, right? So in this data, we have X declared as integer and a public. This one is just integer Y, and Z is a private. Public class for C2 is basically only has a method, and this method is basically we are declaring an object based on the C1, which is in the same package of C1. So in that case, means that we can access X, the data of X, and we can access as well data of Y, but we cannot access on Z because of the private, even though they are in the same package. Yeah? We also can invoke the M1, which is method 1 and method 2, yeah, but we cannot access for method 3. So if you notice that whether we put public or without public, so these two methods and these two data types can be accessed by other classes of the same package, but it cannot access the once we declare private over there. So you notice that Z of data and M3 of the method cannot be accessed. Yeah. So let's say we have another package, P2 over here, which is P2. Okay. So P2 of, let's say, call it C3 and with a method, and C1, which is a class method of package 1 of C1 over here, and declare an object of C1. We can access XO, which is the data of X, but we cannot access Y and Z in this case, yeah, of course, it is so obvious Z is a private, we private, but in terms of Z, because they are the different package, due to that we cannot access of data Y. The same goes to method. So we can invoke or we can call M1 because we declare it public, but it doesn't work on M2 and M3 in this case because they are different packages. The same goes, if you notice it, in this example over here, we have C1 and C2. We can access if they are in the same package, so we can access C1, whatever what we have over here. But if let's say they are different package, we cannot access C1, but we can access C2 easily because the word of public over here. Okay. So those are the things that we can see with. So if you notice that we can access C1 because the word public that we declared earlier in C1, but we cannot access C1 in this the second example over here because it doesn't declare any public on that one. We only can access C2. Okay, so this is how we declare how we can access an object from different classes. So this example here, look at public. Okay, fine. So this is private again, and this is sorry, this one is data. So this one is method public static main. So main program of this class F, and this is private. Okay, so this is test. Again, we have main, and we are trying to call, or you want to use this function F from which is O. Okay, new F over here. Yeah. So because of X and Y, because sorry, Fx, which is the value of here and the value of the convert over here, you know. So due to declaration for the private, we cannot access it because of the private issues. Yeah. And if you notice that we in any classes we have to put some private because of this two reasons, which is protect the data, and if anything happen, we can easily maintain that one. Yeah. How to represent everything in the UML? So we have the class name and the negative and the positive represent of the either the public or the private in this case. Right? So that's how we do it. So this one is the constructor. Yeah. So the constructor over here. This one doesn't give any receive any value, but this one receive a value or parameter called double, and both of them are basically constructor. So this one, if this is just empty one, means that this is a default constructor. Yeah, a default constructor, which is this the second constructor is basically assign certain value on that particular data, base data that we declare over here. Yeah. Okay. So in this case, if you notice that throughout the examples, we can pass value by the primitive data type and also by reference. In this case, we are passing with an object. Yeah? So let's go to this example over here later on. Yeah. So if we're talking about primitive data type, we can use all these data type that we have, doubles, float, and so on and so forth, share, byte, and so on. So this is basically easily can be used in this case. But if you use object data type, which is based on the class, so there will be difference. Dia akan berbeza sedikit hal ini. Alright. We also can declare an array of objects. saya harap you all masih ingat in programming 1, array, apakah itu array? So array is basically a sequence of blocks that we can say a block that has the same jenis yang sama. So if let's say we declare this one as an integer yang terdiri daripada 5, for example, so setiap kotak ini, all this kotak over here, kotak yang kita sediakan untuk mengisi 5 values of integer. So konsep yang sama juga, we can apply the same concept in the object. So means that if let's say we declare and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 juga, an object of circle, so dia akan menyimpan reference untuk circle yang pertama, circle yang kedua, circle ketiga, index yang ke sampai index yang kelima. So we are doing basically the same thing. We can do the same thing as well. So if we can represent them into a diagram, for example, circle, ini adalah array. So dalam hal ni berapa size this array is basically 10. So this is invocation and this is basically how many, what type of array that we want to do and then how many of them. So this circle array is based on the initialization. Again, because of the object, we are based on the reference. So dia akan createkan ada 10 tempat 0 until 9. So di setiap satu akan kita buatkan index of array tersebut yang terdiri daripada circle. So this is index 0 of circle object 0, object 1, object 2 until object 9. Ada 10 object kat situ. So in this case, basically how we declare that one, this one, this is static. Itu perkara yang kita kena highlight clearly. So this one we have 2 types of array. So we will send the first array. Okay. Sorry, we will create an object circle 1 with a circle, and we are passing the value into the method of that particular class, and we create the second object of the circle to set an array berapa banyak kita nak create. So this is belong to the first array, circle 1 to belong to the first array, and circle 2 are created for the second array. So the object benda tu betul-betul yang sama dalam hal ni. Okay, so how to declare the one is set array. So this one ialah dia akan menerima object instead of, kalau yang selalu kita akan terima ialah data type. So data type yang kita buat yang sebut kita primitive tadi. So this primitive, all the integer, byte, boolean, and so on and so forth, all these are very primitive. But we can also come up with an class object. So this is what happened. So apa yang kita hantar ialah hantar kepada kelas tersebut, dia akan assignkan number of circle, number of object of circle. So you will create and come up with the value of that particular. So the program will be the same over here. So in this case, we are just assigning the circle with the set and array, and then this part method over here is basically print the value of that particular array. Kadang-kadang dalam satu class tersebut, we have method over here. This method, they have the name of the method, kecuali constructor. We can create as much as a method that we want. So katakan we create a method called calculate area, for example. And this one we don't have any value, or maybe an integer value, for example. So this one, we have calculate as well, earlier as well, but this time around we use not integer but double, for example. So this method, both of them, have the same name. Because of that, we call it method overloading. So two methods have a different have a different format parameters over here, but they have the same name. Yeah. So maksudnya kat sini nama sama, but the parameter that passing kadang-kadang method bilangan dia berbeza, or jenis data type juga berbeza. In this case, it could be sometimes it could be an object class, for example. It could be as a primitive data type over here. So due to that, kita panggil jenis yang ini adalah method overloading. So this is example over here. So this is all of this is method that created for that particular class. So if you notice that this one doesn't receive any parameters. This one have one parameters of integer. This one integer and one double. This double and integer. If you notice that the sequence or the way they put it different as compared to the previous one here, and this is different kind of things, and this one is also different. If you notice that this is a string method, string method, class string. In this case, we want to use it for that particular overload mode method. This is an example of it. Yeah. So kita ada dua method called result. First one only receive one integer. Second one we have two type of parameter, and both of them are integer. So in this case, we are basically using a method overloading. So method overloading for this one, they will use the first one, and this one are basically using this one. Yeah. So that is example of method overloading. So that was example. Akan berlaku juga dipanggil constructor overloading. Bila perkataan overloading means that the same name with different parameters. Okay, so constructor basically nama yang sama, same name as the class name. Yeah. So yang tadi adalah method overloading. This one is constructor overloading. Yeah. So maksudnya constructor tu memberi nama sama macam kita punya class, and dia ada different type of variables parameters over here. So this is one example, very straightforward. Kita ada class student, we declare as a public, and then kita ada student over here. Yeah. So we have two different types of parameter passing over here. We have string and integer. And the second constructor, we have string only. Okay, so these two type of constructor, because we call it constructor sebab dia sama dengan nama class, and because of they have different parameter received over here. So this is two parameter. This one kita hanya terima satu. Because of that, these two are basically constructor overloading. Yeah. Right, so that's all for this topic. Any questions so far? Okay, saya akan move kepada topik baru, inheritance and polymorphism. I think these two terms that kita been introduced in slide yang awal-awal. Inheritance mean we inherit, we mewariskan ciri-ciri method-method yang ada di dalam parents, and polymorphism is maksudnya pelbagai sini, pelbagai bentuk. So dalam topik ini, we want to learn about topik-topik yang berkaitan dengan perkara yang diabaikan, principles of classes, differentiate between the single and multiple inheritance, define method in the child classes, and also explain and apply the super keyword. Super means that we want to use the features, characteristic of the the main class you plan. Okay, apa yang dimaksud inheritance? Basically, the whole idea ialah membolehkan kita menggunakan software components itu untuk kelas yang baru. So means that we are not wasting any of the coding. As compared to last time, kita gunakan structural programming paradigm, for example, sekali guna hanya digunakan untuk program tersebut and never be used to others. So because of that, mungkin kita akan buat program tersebut very long and lengthy kind of coding, mungkin thousand million times for example. So dengan gunakan paradigm object oriented, kita can reusable, inherits perkara-perkara yang telah kita declare sebelum ni. Yeah? Can be viewed as a tree-like or hierarchical structures actually. So the new class kita akan panggil dia subclass. The parent or the existing class yang kita inherit itu kita panggil superclass, ya, ataupun sometimes we call it base class. So subclass can sometimes also we call it a direct class. So this is the terms that we might use, we must use, and we have to understand this one. Yeah? So subclass inherit accessible data field and method from the superclass, and also new data field and method means that kalau kita ada kelas yang asal and this is the new class which is inherit daripada kelas A tadi, this is kelas B say. So apa yang ada dalam method dan data ni akan digunakan di dalam B, dan B juga akan tambahkan dia punya method dia sendiri dan data dia sendiri. Yeah? So in this case, this is how the things work. Contohnya sebagai contoh, let's say we have shape, and this shape can have two different, let's say we declare shape as a new class, and we also can create a rectangle. So rectangle is basically inherit daripada shape. Circle also sebahagian daripada shape. So rectangle ini juga adalah sebahagian daripada square. Ya? So kita tak buat square terus kepada shape sebab rectangle dah inherit daripada shape di sini. So this one is not need anymore. So what we do is rectangle dah inherit daripada shape, so square sepatutnya inherit daripada shape di sini. So this kind of things that we are basically. So what we do, normally terms yang kita gunakan is a rectangle is a shape, and every square is also a rectangle over here. So ini anak panah tu maksudnya is a. So how, macam mana kita nak gunakan this other properties, especially the data and also the method that exists in this superclass in this case to be used in the subclass. So dalam hal ini kita gunakan perkataan super untuk inherit atau menggunakan method yang ada dalam superclass tersebut. Okay, before we go further, macam mana nak gunakan, we will look into a different type of inheritance. We have single inheritance, mean a subclass that derive from a single superclass. So for example, over here, so this is rectangular just now, and this is shape, so means that they inherit is which is single inheritance. Multiple inheritance is a subclass that derive from more than one superclass. So it means that it could be, this another class over here that inherit, sorry, not this one, like this, is so means that rectangle is derived from two superclass, for example. So in this case, we want to extend, we are normally in Java, we call it extend define of the existing superclass over there. Okay. Okay. This example is a good example. So this is a single inheritance cycle, inherit from geometry. Triangle as well do come from geometry. Square also come from geometry. So if you look into cone, cylinder, so this is a good example of a multiple inheritance. So cone inherit from circle and triangle, and while the cylinder inherit from the circle and the square over there. Yeah? So that's how. While the sphere and also cube, they only have one single inheritance. Huh? All right. In this class, inheritance, we have the property of characteristics. We have superclass and subclass. Superclass means the parent. Subclass means the derived or the extended one. So if we look at this example, this diagram over here, rectangle is the superclass. Cube is basically subclass. Cube is a rectangle. So that's how we read them. Yeah. Okay, superclass and subclass. Subclass, we call it rectangle, subclass is cube. And if that particular superclass have two attributes over here or two data, so length and width, so means the cube is also inherit length and width, and cubes can come up with its own data members, new data members over here. So what happened? This is our superclass, which is rectangle. We have double of length and double of width. This case is data member. So what happened? Both of these data will be inherit to cubes, and doubles basically a new data member that's specifically only for the cubes. Right. Extend, as I mentioned earlier, extend is a keyword that implement the inheritance concepts. For example, over here, class, whatever name that you give, which is extend the name of the superclass. Okay. So what the example over here, class cube extend the rectangle. Yeah. So means we are inherit extend any properties that available in the rectangles. Yeah. A subclass inherit data members and method. Okay, data members and method. So if let's say, so this is your superclass with X of data and X of method. So this is subclass. So again, he will derive or he will inherit the data member and method. And of course, it can come up with new data member, the subclass over here, and new method, which is over here, new data and new method, and override the method of the superclass. Most basically, it can modify the existing behavior of the parents of victim. Yeah? So it can come up with this idea. So this is one example. Rectangle is the superclass. We have two data, and this is basically our constructors, and we are assigning L, any value L to variables over here into length and width, and this is method. All this is method. If you notice this public, 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 public. Yeah. So the only thing is private over here is the data. Yeah. And then this is all public. So this is the whole idea of the superclass. So this is subclass or the child of that parent class. Ya. Kalau terms yang kadang-kadang saya gunakan juga. So bulk is basically the subclass, and this is superclass kita, extended superclass. Dia tambah satu lagi data dipanggil height. Remember kat sini dia akan inherit all the features that available over there, termasuk data dan juga dia punya method. So what happen is, in this case, this is the constructor, ya. Nampak tak? Kalau constructor, they have three values dengan length, width, and height. So this height is basically we can assign directly over here, but double length and width ni kita inherit daripada parents dia tadi. Yeah, so kita inherit these two, and what we do is we just assign this value L and width over here by typing super and assigning value L and width over here. Okay, so that's how we are doing for the constructor. Means that we initialize the value, three values that we are talking about, length, width, and height. While this one is sama je, tak ada masalah. So if you notice that this part, which is method, this is another, sorry, this is method as well, ya. Tak ada masalah ni, method ni is straightforward. This method is called, of course, double public and called area. Okay. So remember, kita inherit method yang sama daripada kelas parent. Remember, parent also ada method dipanggil area. So in this case, kita nampak tak? Kita override method yang ada pada superclass. Maksudnya kita boleh modify method yang sedia ada dalam kelas parent tadi. So what happen is kita modify. Yang ni kita nak cari return length of width, area kawasan, luas kawasan. Untuk satu area kawasan ni berbeza sedikit sebab it's a box, ya. So box area kawasan dia untuk mengira slightly different in this case, ya. So assuming this is the box that we're talking about. So apa yang kita buat ialah 2 kali get length kali get width, length kali height kali width and kali height. So the formula is slightly different as compared to what we have from the parents method. So kita boleh modify. Ni the same name as me. So that sama juga toString over here. toString pun, I'm sorry. toString pun kita ada pada parents with the public and string. So we use the public and string as well, toString. So in this case, we are modifying a bit by adding height kat sini. Tengok, super toString kita tambah, kita ambil method ataupun whatever property that we have toString ini, and then kita tambah dia punya formula override kat situ. So in that case, we basically, we are basically modifying the behavior of the parents. Yeah? Kita merubah method tersebut. And if let's say you want to get value from the parents, kita akan just typekan super and then dot area, which is dot area is come from this part over here. Yeah? So that's how we think. How to test the class? Static void main macam biasa. This is rectangle, which is the main class, and this is the subclass, anak dia, and then kita try and error with this one. So what happened? This will be the output of this test. Yeah? If we draw the diagram, so what happened? Kita ada rectangle, which is our superclass. Over here, kita ada dua data, and kedua-duanya adalah private dalam hal ni, and we also have kita punya constructor and method. So kita ada constructor which is this one, and get length, get width sama je. So kita tandakan merah ni sebab kita modifying, override kita punya method kat sini, sebab our child which is box over here, they are modifying this to method over there. Yeah? So that's how we draw the diagram. Again, this is private and the rest of it is basically kita put plus because we want to make sure all these methods is accessible to others in this case. So public, we declare public. Yeah. So the class box is derived from the class rectangle. So yes, all the public members of the rectangle are public members of the box. Yes, class box of override the method to string and area. Remember kita ubah two methods ini, modify it and come up with the method for that particular box. Box ada tiga members, their length, width and height. The new thing is height. The length and the width is inherit from the rectangle or superclass. Instead from length and width are private members of a class rectangle, so it cannot be directly accessed by the box. Meaning kita tak boleh access directly. So we have gunakan kata super. We have to use super keywords over there to access including length and width. Use a super as I mentioned, termasuklah kita punya all the methods. Yeah? The same case happened in the volume method where area, super area is being used to determine the base of the box. The main area of the box determine the surface of the area. To retrieve the length and width method, we use get length and get width. Remember, get x, set x. So these are the things that normally we use in this inheritance. And later on, kita akan banyak gunakan get x, set x now. Yeah. And the reason word super is not used because of the box does not override the methods of get length and get width. Yeah. So how to use keyword super? So pertamanya kita just type super, maksudnya kita referring the superclass constructor over there. Kalau kita type super dot something to method name, so means that we can refer to that particular method of the superclass. Kalau kita type super dot variable name, refer to the variable of the superclass. Yeah. Constructor are not inherited by subclasses. Each class must define its own constructor, yeah? And a reserved word super is used. It must be first statement in the subclass of the constructors. So maksudnya kat sini kamu kena buat a constructor, your own constructor in the box supaya kita nak create your own constructor for this object for this class of the object, even though we have the constructor of the super class. Yeah, tapi kita kena create juga the constructor for that particular subclass. So super without any values whatsoever is no argument constructor, whereas if we put any arguments in that the bracket, so that will be superclass that match with the argument over there. Yeah. So this example, we have created another class called rectangle 2. Kita ada dua private value of data width and height. Yeah. So what happened is if we receive two arguments over here, and then he will assign this value and assign to with data this one and this one. Yeah? And draw another method which is public over here, which is those the operation. This is will print in a box based on row and column and print star of that box over here. Yeah? So this is a subclass which is extend for the superclass that we created earlier. So created a new data of string private called label. Yeah, and this one is a constructor. Okay, this time around the constructor have three arguments, so width, height, and label. So what happened? Labels over here and assigned to label over here, and then this is basically over here. and width and height is basically comes from the superclass, from the parent class. Yeah. So you will create that particular width and height value. Yeah. And then draw is basically comes from the draw of, sorry, where is it? Yeah, draw from this method over here. Yeah, from the superclass, and then you will print out the labels over there. Yeah. So if we test our application, test the constructors, and what happened is the new one is created, and this extensions of this one with this value box and the system. At the end of it, the output will be like this. So this is from, sorry, this is from, excuse me, excuse me. This is from the base subclass. This is from the subclass. Yeah. Okay. Some of the rules that we need to remember: the private members of the superclass are private to the superclass. The subclass can access the member of the superclass according to the accessibility rules. The subclass can include additional data or methods member. So means private is only used at the particular class. So in this case, if you want to add or you want to modify, override the method, you have to modify it in the subclass. Yeah. Okay, the subclass can override, can redefine method in the superclass. In this case, means that we have to modify the calculation, for example, instead of at 1 point, we have to add 3 points, for example. All this is basically we can help override methods for that. The override method subclass must have the same name, must have the same parameter list, and has the same return type. Yeah. So kalau misalnya kita ada A method in a subclass, let's say integer x, integer y, integer z. So this is under subclass. So this is subclass. In the superclass, we also have the same method with the same parameters, with the same name, and if there's return value, you should have the same return value. The only difference is what inside here, inside the body of the method. Okay. All data members of the superclass are also data members of the respective subclass. Similar, the method of the superclass are also the method of the subclass. Yeah. The words that we use is super. So in this case, super without any argument, so means that it's a constructor superclass. With that particulars method means that we are basically override. We want to instantiate the method that we want to use from the superclass. Yeah. Okay. Member in the superclass, like member constructor of the superclass cannot inherit by the subclass. That's why we need to create our own constructor in the subclass. You must define constructor of each classes using default constructor added by the computer. So, for example, the statement super means that we want to call the superclass must be the first statement in the subclass constructors. Okay, so if you create extend blah 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 from this class, yeah, so this one super must be the first part of the class constructor. Yeah. A core constructor of the superclass must be the first statement in the subclass. So if let's say we have constructor box, yeah, so the class of box, we have 3 arguments over here or 3 parameters over there. So this super is basically the one that we must be in the first statement in the subclass of the constructors. So we have to put over here, and this is some sort of assigning all the value, that we want to assign in terms of length, width, and height. Yeah. So if we do the test, we have, this is our main superclass. This is our subclass. So rectangle, my rectangle, new rectangle with 5 and 3. So what happened? My rectangles over here, we are signing the area or the address of this new object with the length 5 and 3. Okay. So if you create a box, my box, which is box over here is extend of the rectangle, and with the new value of 4 over here, x, y, z, with length, width, and height. So what happened is, this one is belong to length, this one belong to width, and this one is height. Yeah. So what happened is, this how we are created of the second uh, uh, constructors based on the subclass that we created. Okay. I think that one is basically the same that what we did. Yeah? So inheritance. So inheritance over here, if you notice that class fruits over here, which is public fruit string name, and this one is created by extending the fruits that we have created over there, and system.out apples constructor is invoked, example over here, because we are creating a class called apple. So so in this case, we don't have no argument constructor. So it means that no apple over here. So there will be an error or something like that if you want to look into this kind of action. Yeah. So I would love you to have an exercise, and I think play around with this all these examples that we created in this slide. Yeah. And then we will look and discuss a bit detailed later on in our next Wednesday's class. Okay. I think I want to stop here. Any questions so far? I want to make our class uh, easy today, and then hopefully you can look into a bit detail later on. Yeah. So I'll finish with this inheritance and constructors over here in this topic, week 5. Hopefully, in the next meeting we can start with more implementation, for example, and also I can send you the assignments later. Yeah. Any questions so far? No. Okay, so if you don't have any questions, I will share again. I will share the attendance. Those who are not in the attendance, please do so. Yeah, and uh, so those who already scanned, you can leave the class now. And then inshallah, I'll see you next meeting on Wednesday. There will